Welcome to Science for Sleepy Minds. I'm glad you're here in whatever shape this day has left you in. Maybe your eyes are already closed. Maybe your mind is still a little bright and busy, like a room with a light that won't quite turn off. If so, you don't have to force anything. You don't have to fix yourself into sleep. You can simply arrive just as you are and let the night do some of the work for you. Tonight we're going to drift through the ocean together, slowly and gently, with a long collection of strange ocean facts explained in a way that never needs to hurry. Think of it like a quiet walk along the shoreline of science. Not a march, not a test, just a soft wandering, picking up one curious detail at a time, looking at it in the moonlight, and then setting it back down. And if you fall asleep before we finish, that's more than okay. It's encouraged. Sleep is the point. Learning is just a calm companion, walking beside you for as long as you're awake. You don't need to remember anything. You don't need to hold on to any of it. If your attention comes and goes, that's natural. Like waves arrived and are retreating, your mind can come close, then float back again. The ocean is a good topic for that kind of gentle attention. It has repetition built into it. Waves returning, tides shifting, currents gliding, patterns that change, but never all at once. So we'll let that rhythm carry this whole night, forward, one small fact at a time in an easy, patient flow. If you'd like to support the channel, you can like and subscribe in whatever calm way that fits into your life, and now you can let that thought go and come back to the quiet. Let's begin by settling your body very slowly, as if you're letting yourself sink into warm sand that holds you perfectly. Take a gentle breath in through your nose, not a big breath, just a comfortable one, and then let it out a little longer than you took it in, as if the ocean is drawing water toward the shore and then releasing it, in and out. Again, a soft inhale and a slower exhale. If your breathing wants to stay shallow, that's fine. If it wants to deepen on its own, that's fine too. You're not trying to control your body, you're just giving it a little room. Now, bring your attention to your forehead. Let it smooth out as if warm seawater is passing over it. Let your eyebrows loosen. Let the small muscles around your eyes unclench, as if you're setting down a tiny weight you didn't realize you were carrying. Let your jaw soften. If your teeth are touching, allow a little space between them. Let your tongue rest. You don't need to speak. You don't need to solve anything. You can simply exist here quietly. Let your shoulders relax downward. Not forced, not pushed, just allowing them to drop, like the way a heavy coat slides off a chair and settles into place. If you notice tension in the back of your neck or across your upper back, imagine it gently dissolving, not all at once, but gradually like salt dissolving into water. Let your arms be heavy, let your hands rest wherever they are, and if they want to uncurl, let them. Fingers can soften, palms can open. The body has so many tiny places it holds on, and tonight you can offer those places permission to let go. If you need to adjust your pillow, your blanket, the position of your legs, you can do that. Find the shape that feels most effortless, as if you're arranging a small nest for yourself. There's a quiet comfort in making your space just right, like a cabin on a foggy coast with a warm light inside and nothing urgent outside the window. As you settle, you can hold a gentle image in your mind. Imagine a small boat on a calm midnight sea. The water is dark but not threatening. It's simply night-coloured, like ink or velvet. The boat rocks in a slow, steady rhythm. Not sharp, not sudden, just a soft motion like breathing. And somewhere in the distance a lighthouse turns its beam, not flashing, not calling attention, just moving slowly like a patient hand sweeping a room, making sure everything is safe and then continuing on. Let your thoughts behave the same way the waves do. They can rise, form, crest and fade. You don't have to chase them, you don't have to fight them. You can let them come and then let them go like foam that forms and dissolves, leaving the surface smooth again. Now in your imagination, let's step into a quiet coastal night. Picture yourself on a shoreline, not in the heat of day, but in the cool hush of evening. The air is slightly damp. There's the faint smell of salt, not sharp, just gentle, like a reminder that water is nearby. The sky above you is dark and wide with a few steady stars. The ocean stretches out beyond what you can see, a soft, moving presence. You hear the smallest sounds, water touching sand, pebbles shifting as waves roll them and set them down again, a far-off gull settling into silence. Everything feels slower here. Even time feels like it has softened at the edges. This is a good place to learn, because it doesn't demand anything from you. It asks only that you listen, and even that is optional. The ocean is a world within our world. Beneath this surface are patterns you can't see from shore, layers of water with different temperatures, currents moving like slow rivers, chemistry quietly shaping taste and life, creatures with strange bodies and stranger habits. Tonight, we'll explore that ocean in small, gentle ripples of information. One fact will appear, spread softly, and then blend back into calm. There will be no pressure to stay awake. There will be no pressure to keep track. Just a long, steady drifting, as if you're lying on your back in shallow water, held up by buoyancy, looking toward the night sky. And even when we speak about deep places, powerful vital forces, and unusual animals, we'll do it with a calm voice, like reading from a field journal by warm lamplight. Nothing scary, nothing intense, just quiet curiosity. So let's begin with what feels most familiar. The shore, the waves. When you stand at the edge of the ocean watching waves come in, it can look like the water itself is travelling toward you, as if the sea is walking up the beach. But one of the first gentle, strange truths is that a wave is mostly not a travelling chunk of water. A wave is energy moving through water. You can imagine it like a stadium wave where people stand up and sit down in sequence. The wave travels around the stadium, but each person mostly stays in their seat. In the same quiet way the wave shape travels, the energy travels, but that water particles mostly move in small circles, rising and falling, rolling and returning right where they are. If you've ever shaken out a bedsheet, you've seen something similar. You flick one end and a ripple moves across the fabric. The fabric itself doesn't get up and walk across the room. The motion passes through it. That's one reason waves feel so soothing to watch. They hold movement and stillness together at the same time. And here's a strange ocean fact to let rest gently in your mind. Waves can travel enormous distances across the open sea. A storm can be far away, beyond the horizon, maybe beyond your imagination, and yet its energy can send smooth, rounded swells rolling onto a beach that is calm and quiet. So you might be standing on a peaceful shore with a mild breeze, and the waves arriving at your feet are telling a story that began hundreds, even thousands of kilometers away. Not with words, with rhythm. It's a comforting thought in a way. The ocean carries messages slowly. It doesn't shout, it doesn't rush. It lets energy spread out, soften, and arrive as something gentle. And as you listen, you can let your breath follow the same pattern. In and out. In and out. Like a wave rising and then easing back. Now, not all waves are the same. Some are small ripples raised by a local breeze. Some are larger swells formed by winds pushing across long stretches of open water. And some waves interact with the shape of the sea floor as they approach land, rising higher as the water becomes shallow. A wave out in deep water is like a long, low hill. It moves across the surface without breaking. But as it nears shore, the bottom of the wave begins to drag against the shallower seafloor. The top keeps moving faster than the bottom. The wave grows steeper. The crest leans forward, and eventually it tips, spills, and breaks. That breaking sound, that soft crash and fizz, is partly the sound of air mixing with water. Foam is mostly water filled with tiny bubbles. Those bubbles pop again and again, making the hiss you hear along the shore. It's like the ocean is whispering in a language made of bubbles. Another strange fact, quiet and simple, is that the ocean can create what people sometimes call wave trains, sets of waves arriving in groups. You might notice a few larger waves in a row and then a calmer stretch. That happens because waves of different sizes and speeds can catch up, overlap and combine. Sometimes they add together, momentarily taller and then separate again. Even in this, there's something soothing. The ocean doesn't hold one mood forever. It moves in sets and pauses, like someone breathing in phrases. Now, if waves are the ocean's surface music, tides are its deepest rhythm. You've probably heard of tides, the slow rise and fall of sea level along coasts, but it's easy to imagine tides as simply the ocean coming in and going out. The underlying truth is both stranger and more peaceful. Tides are shaped mostly by the gravitational pull of the moon and also by the sun. Gravity is like a gentle tug across space. And the moon, though it looks small in the sky, is close enough to tug differently on different parts of Earth. The side of Earth facing the moon is pulled a little more strongly than the center, and the center is pulled more strongly than the far side. This difference creates bulges in Earth's oceans, like the oceans gently stretched. One bulge forms on the side facing the moon, where the pull is strongest. Another bulge forms on the far side, where the pull is weakest compared to the center, creating a kind of opposite bulge. As Earth rotates, coastlines move through these bulges, and sea level rises and falls. So in a calm, sleepy way, you can think of tides as Earth turning under two slow swells, again and again, day after day, like the planet itself is breathing, and the sun helps too. Even though the sun is far away, it's so massive that it also pulls on Earth's oceans. When the sun, moon and Earth line up, their pulls combine and tides become a bit more extreme. When they form a right angle, the pulls partly cancel and tides are more moderate. It's a gentle reminder that even the water at your feet is connected to the sky. The moon doesn't just glow, it moves the ocean. If you're lying in bed right now, you can imagine the moon's quiet tug reaching across space, touching the whole ocean at once, lifting and lowering it in slow motion. And you can let that thought drift away like a cloud passing over. Now let's zoom slightly outward, from waves and tides to the wider movement of the ocean. Currents. Currents are like rivers in the sea. Some are surface currents driven by wind. Some are deep currents driven by differences in temperature and saltiness, which change the density of water. A gentle fact to hold is that warm water is usually less dense than cold water, so it tends to stay nearer the surface. And salty water is more dense than fresh water, so it tends to sink. These simple rules, repeated across the world, help organize the ocean into layers and flows, like a slow, planet-sized conveyor. Water moves not randomly, but in patterns that can last for centuries. And here is where Earth's spin quietly enters the story. Because Earth is rotating, moving water doesn't travel in perfectly straight lines across the globe. It is gently deflected. In the northern hemisphere, moving water tends to be nudged to the right of its path. In the southern hemisphere, to the left. This effect is called the Coriolis effect, and you don't need to memorize the name. You can just picture the feeling. Imagine stirring a cup of tea gently with a spoon. Once a swirl begins, it has a tendency to keep curving. The ocean's curving is far larger and slower, shaped by Earth's rotation and guided by coastlines and the shape of continents. So the sea is not just a mass of water, it's a moving pattern woven around the planet, turning and looping and gliding. Now, a few numbers without pressure, like a lullaby you don't need to remember, just to hear. The ocean covers most of Earth's surface, more than 2/3. That means when you look at pictures of our planet from space, the dominant colour is not green or brown. It's blue. The oceans are Earth's main visible feature. And yet, even with all that water, much of the deep ocean remains less mapped in detail than the surfaces of some other world's moons. That's a strange fact too. There are still underwater ridges and valleys, still habitats and behaviours, still small surprises waiting in places far below sunlight. It's comforting, maybe, to know that the world still holds quiet mysteries. Not loud mysteries, not urgent ones, just gentle unknowns that can remain unknown for now, while you rest. Let your body feel heavy again, let your face soften, it's okay to drift. Now we're going to slide from the movement of water to the taste of it. Salt. Even if you're nowhere near the sea, you might remember the way the air tastes near the coast. A faint saltiness that seems to settle on the lips, a clean mineral smell. That taste is part of the ocean's chemistry, and the ocean's chemistry is one of the calmest sciences because it is patient. It works on long time scales. It doesn't need to hurry. Here's a gentle, strange truth. The ocean is salty mostly because rivers are constantly bringing dissolved minerals into it. Rain falls on land, it trickles through soil, it runs over rocks, and in that slow movement it dissolves tiny amounts of minerals and salts in the form of ions and carries them into streams and rivers, and then to the sea. So you can imagine the ocean as the end of many journeys. Water travelling downhill, picking up little pieces of earth along the way, and delivering them to the vast basin of the sea. Over long spans of time, this has made seawater salty. Not because someone poured salt into it, but because the planet has been quietly seasoning it, grain by grain, drop by drop for millions of years. And yet the ocean doesn't become saltier forever, because salt also leaves the ocean in different ways. Some minerals are used by living things, some are locked into sediments, some are removed through chemical reactions near the seafloor. The ocean is like a slow kitchen, with steady inputs and steady outputs tending toward balance. Another strange fact, cozy and simple, is that the ocean is not equally salty everywhere. In places where evaporation is strong, where hot air draws water upward and leaves salt behind, the sea can become saltier. In places where rivers pour in fresh water, or where rain is heavy, the sea can be less salty. In places where sea ice forms, salt is mostly squeezed out into the surrounding water, making the nearby water saltier and denser. So there are regions of the ocean that are like different soups in different pots, each with its own blend. This matters because saltiness affects density, and density affects how water layers and moves. Imagine pouring syrup into water. The syrup is denser, so it sinks and forms a layer below. Seawater can behave a little like that, though the layers are subtler, softer, more like silk than syrup. If a patch of water becomes very salty and cold, it becomes dense enough to sink, sliding downward and spreading out along the deep sea floor. In some parts of the world, cold, salty water sinks and begins long journeys through the deep ocean, moving slowly, like a deep breath travelling through the body. This is a quiet, strange fact. Some of the water in the deep ocean has been away from the surface for a very long time. It is not rushing, it is not churning, it is gliding. Now, another chemistry detail, gentle and almost cozy. Seawater freezes at a slightly lower temperature than fresh water. Because dissolved salts interfere with ice forming, seawater needs to be a bit colder before it turns to ice. And when seawater does freeze, most of the salt doesn't fit easily into the ice crystals. So the ice is relatively fresh compared to the water it formed from, and the remaining liquid becomes even saltier. Sea ice is like a sieve. It leaves behind a concentrated brine, while the ice itself is closer to fresh water. That's why if sea ice melts and you capture the meltwater, it can be much less salty than the ocean around it. It's another tender reminder that even simple processes have strange little details. Water is never just water. It's always interacting, always changing its rules slightly depending on what is mixed into it. Now, let's talk about the ocean breathing. Seawater holds gases dissolved inside it, like oxygen and carbon dioxide. Just as the soda holds carbon dioxide until it fizzes out, the ocean holds gases exchanged with the air above it. Winds and waves help mix surface water, allowing oxygen from the atmosphere to dissolve in. That oxygen becomes precious for many living things in the sea, especially in places where photosynthesis isn't possible. And carbon dioxide also dissolves into seawater, where it becomes part of a larger chemical story involving acidity and carbonate minerals. But you don't need to hold the whole complexity. You can simply picture the surface of the ocean as a place of exchange, where air and water touch and trade invisible things gently and continuously. A slow, planetary breath. If you notice your own breath again, you can let it feel connected to that larger rhythm. Not in a mystical way, just in a simple way. You breathe in air that has touched oceans, forests, cities, and clouds. And you breathe out air that will travel and mingle and eventually become part of Earth's moving systems. There is something comforting in that. Your breath belongs. It fits into this world. Now, as we keep drifting into the ocean, let's move from chemistry to light. Picture shallow water in daylight. You can see sand and shells beneath the surface. You can see sunlight making shifting patterns like lace or woven gold dancing on the bottom. It looks warm and inviting. But water changes light. One gentle, strange fact is that water absorbs different colours of light at different rates. Red light is absorbed relatively quickly, then orange, then yellow. Blue light penetrates deeper, which is one reason the ocean often appears blue. Not because the water is blue paint, but because the blue wavelengths are the ones that remain and scatter back to your eyes. So if you descend through water, the world slowly changes colour. At first, everything looks normal, then reds begin to fade. A red object can look darker, even black, in deeper water because the red light isn't there to reflect. This fading is like a dimmer switch turning down gradually one shade at a time. And that brings us to a quiet, almost dreamy region of the ocean, often called the twilight zone. Not a scary name, just a descriptive one. It's the layer where sunlight is present, but faint, not bright enough for many plants to photosynthesize. It's a realm of soft blue gloom, where shadows are gentle and boundaries blur. Many animals live here, and some of them have adapted in strange ways to this low-light world. Some have very large eyes, some have sensitive organs that detect movement and vibrations. Some use bioluminescence, producing their own light. We'll talk more about living light later, but for now you can hold a gentle image, a dark blue underwater space, and small points of light like drifting stars, not flashing or startling, just glowing softly. Now, a fact about pressure. explained in the calmest way. As you go deeper in the ocean, the pressure increases. That's because there is more water above you. Water has weight and it presses downward. You can imagine pressure like blankets stacked gently. One thin blanket doesn't feel like much, but if you add blanket after blanket, the weight adds up. In the ocean, depth is like adding more and more water blankets overhead. Most of the time you don't think about pressure because your body is used to the pressure of air at the surface, but underwater, pressure becomes part of the environment that life has adapted to in remarkable ways. And again, we'll keep it non-scary. Pressure isn't a monster, it's just a rule, a steady, predictable rule. Life learns the rules and finds ways to live within them. Now, something else about the ocean that feels almost like a lullaby. Sound. Sound travels better in water than in air. Water transmits vibrations efficiently, carrying them far. That means the ocean can be a very listening world full of distant signals. Whales, for example, use sound to communicate over long distances. Some whale calls can travel for many kilometers, moving through the water like resonant messages. If you imagine the ocean at night, you can picture these sounds moving through it like soft threads, connecting animals across the dark. And even when the ocean seems quiet from shore, it holds a gentle chorus, the crackle of tiny organisms, the rustle of moving water, the distant hum of waves interacting with the seafloor. Now, we're going to let our minds visit a place that sounds dramatic but can be described gently: hydrothermal vents. Deep on the seafloor in certain regions, there are places where seawater seeps down into cracks, becomes heated by Earth's internal warmth, and returns to the ocean carrying dissolved minerals. These are hydrothermal vents. You can picture them like underwater hot springs, or like quiet chimneys releasing warm, mineral-rich water into the cold deep. Around these vents, life can flourish in surprising ways because the chemistry provides energy. In places where sunlight is absent, some ecosystems rely on chemical reactions instead of photosynthesis. Bacteria can eat chemicals like hydrogen sulfide and use that energy to build living matter, forming the base of a food web. It's one of the most soothing kinds of wonder. It tells you that life can be creative, patient, adaptable. Imagine those vents as calm underwater campfires, not burning but warm, drawing communities of organisms that cluster like sleepy neighborhoods around a gentle hearth in the dark. And if your mind begins to wander, you can let it. You can come back to the feeling of your bedding under you, the softness, the heaviness, the quiet. We've begun our slow walk along the shoreline of ocean science, touching waves, tides, currents, salt, light, pressure, and sound. And in each of these, the ocean has shown a kind of steady calm. Before we drift further into stranger creatures and hidden landscapes later on, let's pause in a familiar place again, like returning to the edge of the water. Picture the wave line on the sand, the thin foam tracing a bright edge in the dark. The ocean comes in and the ocean goes out. It doesn't argue with itself, it doesn't rush, it simply repeats patiently, until your body remembers that it can do the same. You can let your breath fall into that repetition now, in and out. If a thought appears, that's okay. Let it rise like a small ripple, and then let it flatten again, in and out. And if you feel yourself drifting, slipping towards sleep, you don't have to hold on. You can let go, you're safe here. The ocean can keep moving in the background, steady and quiet while you rest. There is one more gentle idea to leave you with before we continue deeper next time in our long, slow journey. The ocean's surface can look like a simple boundary just where water meets error, but it is also a place where worlds touch and exchange, heat moves, gases move, light enters and fades energy travels in waves. The moon's gravity lifts entire basins of water, and beneath it all, there is the slow, continuous motion of currents, carrying water around Earth with almost unbelievable patience. So even in stillness, there is movement, and even in movement, there can be calm. Let that be your permission for tonight. You don't have to be perfectly still to rest. You can have a moving mind and still be safe. You can have drifting thoughts and still be okay. Like the ocean, you can keep gently changing while remaining held. Take one more comfortable breath in, let it go slowly. And as we continue, you can stay with the sound of the waves in your imagination and allow the next facts to arrive as softly as foam one after another, without needing to catch them. If you're still awake, welcome back into the same quiet shoreline. You don't need to do anything to be here. You don't need to pay perfect attention. You can listen loosely, the way you might listen to rain on a window, noticing it when you notice it, and drifting when you drift. Let your body stay heavy. Let your face be soft. If your jaw is tightened again, you can let it loosen. If your shoulders have crept upward, you can let them sink down into the bedding, as if the mattress is gently receiving their weight. And in your mind, the ocean is still there, steady and patient, moving in slow patterns that don't require effort from you. We've already touched the surface music of waves, the planet breath of tides, and the quiet chemistry of salt and gases. Now we can continue our gentle descent into the ocean's living world. Begin with something familiar. Picture a fish, simple and ordinary, gliding through water. Picture the way it hardly seems to struggle. Fins move, the body flexes, and it slips forward as if the water itself is helping. Water is dense compared to air, and that density gives both support and resistance. It holds a body up, but it also pushes back. So ocean creatures often have shapes that feel like quiet compromises, streamlined enough to move easily, wide enough to be stable, flexible enough to turn. Even the way a fish moves its tail is a little strange and elegant. It pushes water backward, and by doing that it moves forward. A simple exchange, a soft cause and effect. Now imagine something else familiar. A crab on the seafloor, moving sideways, careful and deliberate. Crabs have hard outer shells called exoskeletons. It's like wearing armor on the outside instead of having bones on the inside. And here's one gentle, strange fact to rest with. Because the shell is hard and doesn't stretch the way skin does, many animals with exoskeletons have to grow by molting. They shed their old shell, soft and vulnerable for a while, then harden a new one. In a calm way, you can think of that as a kind of slow renewal. A creature outgrowing a suit that no longer fits, stepping out and forming another. Nature has many ways of changing without rushing. Now let's drift toward a group of creatures that can feel strange because they don't have the shapes we expect. Jellyfish. They're mostly water. They have no bones, no stiff structure. They are like soft bells of living tissue, pulsing gently, drifting with currents, sometimes almost transparent. One strange fact is that because jellyfish are so close to the density of the water around them, they can move with very little effort. Their pulse is small and the ocean does the rest. If you're looking for a sleepy metaphor, a jellyfish is like a thought that doesn't grip. It rises and floats, and then it fades into the background. If you imagine them at night, in water that's dark and quiet, they can seem like moving pieces of moonlight. Now there is a particular kind of ocean strangeness that feels tailor-made for bedtime. Living light. Bioluminescence. Some ocean organisms can produce light through chemical reactions in their bodies. It's not electricity like a light bulb, it's chemistry, slow and precise. A molecule reacts with oxygen, often guided by an enzyme, and light is released. The reasons for this light are varied. Some creatures use it to attract mates, some use it to lure prey, some use it to confuse predators. But we'll keep it gentle tonight. We can hold bioluminescence as a quiet kind of communication, a soft glow in a dark world. Picture the ocean's twilight zone again, where sunlight has faded into deep blue. Now picture a few tiny glimmers, like stars. They appear, pause, and then dim. Not flashing, not sharp, just glowing as if the water itself is making lanterns. Some bioluminescent organisms are tiny like plankton. In certain conditions, when waves stir the surface at night, you can see sparkling trails of light, as if the sea is sprinkled with glitter. A strange, soothing fact is that the ocean can sometimes look like it's filled with constellations right at the surface responding to movement. If you've ever moved your hand through water and watched it shimmer, you can imagine that feeling. The water remembers motion with light. And now another gentle adaptation that feels almost like a bedtime story. Camouflage. In the ocean, camouflage can mean matching colours, but it can also mean matching brightness. Many fish have darker backs and lighter bellies. This is called countershading. From above, a dark back blends with the darker depths below. From below, a lighter belly blends with the brighter surface above. It's like wearing a hoodie that matches the sky and the sea at the same time, depending on where you're seen from. Strange, isn't it, that being ordinary in the ocean is often about being invisible? Some creatures go further, transparency. There are animals whose bodies are so clear that light passes through them. In the open ocean, where there are few places to hide, being see-through can be a kind of hiding. It's a gentle paradox. To survive, you disappear by becoming almost nothing looking at all. You might picture a glass sculpture drifting in blue water, barely outlined, only visible, when it catches a bit of light. Now let's drift up again towards something cozy and social. Reefs and cleaning stations. On coral reefs, there are places where larger fish will pause and allow smaller fish or shrimp to pick parasites and dead skin from their bodies. It's like a tiny underwater spa, a quiet appointment in the reef's daily schedule. This is a form of symbiosis, a relationship where different species help each other. The smaller cleaner gets food and the larger animal gets relief. It's a comforting fact because it shows cooperation woven into nature. Not everything is competition. Sometimes it's routine kindness, repeated, and reefs in general can feel like underwater gardens. Coral isn't a plant even though it looks like one. Coral is made of tiny animals called polyps living in colonies, building calcium carbonate skeletons over long time. A strange fact is that reefs are built by countless small lives doing small work day after day, slowly constructing structures large enough to see from space. That's a gentle lesson in patience. Tiny actions can add up to entire landscapes. Now, if your mind is drifting, you can let it. You can float away for a moment and come back whenever you like. Let your breathing stay easy, like waves arriving without effort. Here's another strange ocean pattern that feels beautifully sleepy. Daily vertical migration. In many parts of the ocean, tiny organisms and small animals rise toward the surface at night and sink deeper during the day. It's one of the largest movements of biomass on Earth, happening every day, like a quiet tide of life. At night, when darkness offers cover and the surface is safer, they rise to feed. At dawn, they sink again into dimmer water. You can picture it like a slow elevator in a huge building, up at night, down by day, not rushed, just rhythmic. Now, something familiar again. Sea turtles. Sea turtles migrate long distances, moving through ocean basins with patient determination. They use a mix of cues to navigate, including the Earth's magnetic field and possibly patterns of waves and currents. Imagine that. An animal swimming across wide open water, guided by invisible lines, as if reading a map made of magnetism. Magnetic sensing is strange in the sweetest way. It reminds you that reality has layers you don't normally feel. Fields, forces, signals, patterns. The ocean is full of things that are real but unseen. And whales. Whales also migrate, returning to feeding grounds and breeding grounds with astonishing regularity. Their movement is like a living current, a slow-travelling presence. When you think of whale migration, you might picture it as dramatic, but you can hold it as calm instead. Long journeys taken over weeks and months, steady, purposeful quiet, like the best kind of patience. Now, let's touch one or two timeless ocean wonders, softly, without urgency. Some corals can live for a very long time. Some deep-sea sponges and other slow-growing organisms can persist for centuries or more, living in darkness where life moves slowly and resources arrive like gentle snow. It can be comforting to imagine life that is not in a hurry. Life that doesn't measure itself in busy days, but in slow seasons of the sea. Now, we'll begin to shift from living things to the places they live, the ocean's hidden landscapes. Start with a familiar idea, a map. When you think of maps, you might think of mountains and valleys on land, but the seafloor has its own geography. It has plains and hills, ridges and trenches, canyons and volcanic peaks. A strange fact is that the longest mountain range on Earth is not on land at all. It's underwater. There is a vast system of mid-ocean ridges where tectonic plates are spreading apart and new seafloor is created. It's like a seam running through the ocean basins, a place where Earth slowly makes fresh crust. You don't have to picture it as violent, it's often slow. Plates drift apart at rates that can be as small as the speed your fingernails grow. The planet does its biggest work in quiet increments. At these ridges, magma rises, cools and forms new rock. Hydrothermal vents often appear nearby, where seawater interacts with hot rock and returns enriched, as we imagined earlier, like underwater campfires. Now, trenches. A trench is a long, deep depression in the seafloor, often formed where one tectonic plate slides beneath another in a process called subduction. To keep it cozy, imagine two thick rugs on a smooth floor. If you push one toward the other, one rug might begin to buckle and slide under the edge of the other. That gentle tucking under is like subduction on a planet scale over long time. Trenches can be incredibly deep, and the ocean above them can feel like an enormous blanket of water. But again, we don't need to make it dramatic. It's simply depth, and depth is just distance downward, like the distance from your pillow to the floor, only much, much larger. And the deep sea is not empty. It can be quiet and sparse in some places, but it is full of subtle life and slow movement. Now, for a strange kind of underwater weather. You're used to weather in air, wind, clouds, rain. The ocean has its own moving layers that can behave like weather, but in water. One example is the internal waves. An internal wave is a wave that travels along a boundary between layers of different density, deeper below the surface. Imagine a layer of warmer water sitting above a layer of colder water. The boundary between them can ripple and rise and fall. Like a hidden ocean within the ocean, this is a soothing thought. Even beneath the visible waves, there can be other waves, softer and slower, rolling through darkness. Another kind of underwater flow is something like a river of dense water along the seafloor. In some places, extremely salty water forms, denser than the surrounding water, and it can spill downward and flow along the bottom like a slow, heavy stream. It's sometimes called a brine pool or brine flow in certain contexts, and it can look like a shimmering lake on the seafloor. Imagine that. A body of water beneath water, like a secret pond, with a boundary you can almost see. And then there is marine snow. This is one of the gentlest facts in the whole ocean. Marine snow is the continuous fall of tiny particles from the upper ocean down into the deep. Bits of dead plankton, tiny fecal pellets, little fragments of organic matter. It drifts downward slowly, day and night, like a constant snowfall into dark forest. In the deep ocean where sunlight doesn't reach, marine snow becomes food. It is a quiet rain of nourishment, falling from above. You can picture it now if it feels calming. A dark blue space and countless tiny specks drifting down, softly, endlessly like snow in a street lamp's glow. If your mind feels tired, it can rest on that image. Floating, falling, slow, gentle. Now, we'll bring the ocean back closer to you, to everyday life in a grounded, cozy way. The ocean and you are connected even when you're not near the shore. Think of a simple glass of water. Even if that water came from a river or a tap, it's part of the same global cycle. Water evaporates, becomes clouds, falls as rain, runs toward the sea and returns to the sky again. The ocean is Earth's main reservoir, and it plays a huge role in the way heat is stored and moved around the planet. Water can hold a lot of heat, which means the ocean can absorb warmth and release it slowly. This is another soothing idea. The ocean is like a slow circulating warmth blanket. It doesn't change temperature as quickly as land, so coastal regions often have milder temperatures than places far inland. The sea smooths the extremes, softens the edges, and currents move that warmth. A famous example is the Gulf Stream in the Atlantic, which carries warm water northward. This movement helps it influence climates far away. It's like a quiet thread connecting distant places, linking the tropics and higher latitudes with a steady flow. So the ocean is not just a place, it's a system that touches weather, seasons, and the feel of air on your skin. Navigation too has long been connected to the sea. Humans have used stars to navigate across oceans. They've learnt to read currents and winds. They've listened to waves, watched birds, followed patterns. And many animals do similar things in their own ways, guided by magnetism, smell, temperature, and memory. There's something comforting in that shared experience. Many kinds of beings finding their way across wide water, using quiet cues. Now, one more slow, careful thought about time. Coastlines change, but usually on long scales. Waves shape cliffs, grain by grain. Rivers deliver sediment. Tides move sandbars. Sea level shifts over history. You can think of the shore as Earth's handwriting, constantly rewritten, not in a hurry. Tonight, you don't need to rewrite anything quickly. You can let time be slow. You can let the night be gentle, like a tide that comes in and covers the day, smoothing it out. And through all these strange ocean facts, a theme begins to appear. The ocean's strangeness is mostly slow. It is moving, but it is patient. It is powerful, but it is steady. It is full of surprises, but they arrive like waves, not like alarms. If you're still awake, that's fine. If you're half asleep, that's also fine. You can take what you want from these words and let the rest drift away. Now, return to the shoreline in your mind. See the thin edge of foam, white against dark sand, appearing and dissolving. Hear the hush of water pulling back. Feel cool air on your face and the weight of your blanket. Ask yourself softly, without needing an answer. What would it feel like to be as patient as a current? What would it feel like to move through the night without pushing, without forcing, just gliding? Let that question float. Your body is safe, your bed is steady, your breath can be simple. In and out. And as the ocean continues its quiet work somewhere out there in the darkness, you can allow your mind to rest, knowing that nothing needs to be solved right now. If you're still awake, you can let that be true without making it a problem. There is nothing you need to solve right now, no loose ends you have to tie, no mental notes you must remember. You can simply exist where you are and allow your attention to float the way a piece of driftwood floats, not steering, not resisting, just carried along by gentle movement. Feel the bed holding you up. Feel the blanket settling over you. If your breathing has gotten a little shallow, that's fine. If you feel a slow breath arriving on its own, you can notice it without trying to capture it. In and out. And while you rest, we can let the ocean widen again in your imagination. Not as a faraway place, but as something that quietly touches your life every day, even when you're far from the shore. Think about salt for a moment, not the strong, sharp kind, just the faint mineral presence you might taste in coastal air. Salt is a small thing made of tiny charged pieces called ions, drifting invisibly in water, and the ocean is full of them, like a long-held memory of rocks and rivers and time. When you breathe near the sea, the air often feels different, softer, slightly damp. That feeling isn't your imagination. Water evaporates from the ocean's surface and enters the air, increasing humidity, and humidity changes how air feels on your skin, how it moves in your lungs, how it carries heat. There's something gentle about knowing this. The ocean doesn't only exist out there. It reaches into the atmosphere, and the atmosphere reaches back, and you live inside that quiet exchange. Even when you're inland, the air you breathe has travelled. It has brushed over water somewhere. It has picked up moisture, released it, picked it up again. Air moves in long loops, water moves in long loops, and tonight, as you breathe slowly in bed, you're part of the same looping system, just in the calmest possible way. In and out. Now think about the rhythm of waves, and how natural it is that they feel soothing. Waves are patterns, and the human brain is a pattern maker. It looks for regularity, and it relaxes when the regularity is gentle and predictable. The surf is never perfectly repeated, but it's never chaotic either. It's a kind of steady variation, a soft randomness that doesn't demand your focus. One wave arrives a little louder, another arrives a little softer. The timing shifts slightly, the tone changes slightly, and your mind doesn't have to do anything with it. It can simply let it happen. That kind of sound, steady but not mechanical, can feel like a lullaby written by nature. Not a melody you have to follow, more like a comfortable texture. And the ocean offers that texture over and over. If you listen closely at a shoreline, you might hear layers even within the surf. The deeper hush of the main wave, the fizz of bubbles, the tiny ticking sounds of pebbles rolling, a distant hollow boom where a wave meets rock. It's a whole soundscape, but none of it is trying to pull you into urgency. Just sound, arriving, doing what it does, and leaving. It's okay if your thoughts do the same. Now, let's move from the everyday sensation of coastal air and coastal sound toward a deeper wow that stays gentle and safe. Plankton. It's a small word for a vast life. Plankton includes tiny drifting organisms in the ocean, many of them too small to see clearly without help. Some are plants or plant-like, using sunlight to make energy. Some are animals or animal-like, grazing and moving in slow, floating lives. And here is a strange, quiet truth. Much of the oxygen in Earth's atmosphere is connected, in one way or another, to photosynthesis done by microscopic organisms in the ocean. You don't have to hold exact percentages in your mind. You don't have to make it a lesson. You can simply let it be a comforting idea. The world's air is shaped not only by forests and fields, but also by tiny floating lives in open water, doing patient work under sunlight. If you imagine the upper ocean in daylight, you can picture it as a thin, glowing layer, a bright skin. Under that skin, countless small organisms drift, turning light into life. It's like the ocean is quietly making a living fabric. And then, when the sun sets, many of those organisms continue their daily rhythm, rising and falling, grazing and drifting, part of the slow pulse of the sea. It's soothing to picture life in this way, not as loud events, but as constant, gentle processes. The ocean is full of processes. The carbon cycle, for example, is not a single dramatic thing. It's an ongoing exchange, a quiet accounting. Carbon dioxide moves between air and water depending on temperature, winds, and chemistry. In some places, the ocean absorbs more. In other places, it releases more. Some carbon becomes part of shells and skeletons. Some sinks as organic matter, joining that gentle fall of marine snow. The ocean is like a long, slow notebook where matter is written, erased, and rewritten, over and over. Nothing is wasted. Everything moves. And you can borrow that mood for yourself tonight. You don't need to cling to every thought. You can let thoughts move through you. You can let them settle, sink, transform and drift away. Now, let's carry that gentle wonder into the ocean's gardens. When people think of underwater gardens, they often picture coral reefs busy with colour and motion. But there are other gardens too, quieter and swaying, like kelp forests. Kelp is a kind of large brown algae that can grow in cool, nutrient-rich waters. Some kelp can grow quickly, stretching upward toward the surface where light is stronger, forming tall, waving canopies. If you've ever walked through a forest on land, you know the feeling of being surrounded by vertical life, by trunks and stems and leaves making a living architecture. Kelp forests can create a similar feeling underwater, except everything moves with the water. The whole forest sways in slow motion, as if it's breathing. In a kelp forest, sunlight filters down in shifting patterns. Small fish flicker between fronds. Sea otters may float and rest at the surface, tangled in kelp like a blanket. The whole place can feel sheltered, like a room with soft curtains. Even reefs, for all their activity, are built on slow time. Coral polyps are small and delicate. Yet over long spans, their tiny acts of building add up to structures that shape currents, protect coastlines, and create homes for countless species. The ocean often works this way. Small creatures making large landscapes, slow growth creating big stability. And perhaps there's something calming there for you. You don't have to become a new person overnight. You don't have to solve your life in one day. Small changes, repeated gently, can shape a whole coastline of feeling over time. Now return with me for a moment to the idea of currents, because they are a perfect bridge between the natural world and the larger planet. Earlier we talked about density, and how colder water tends to be denser than warmer water, and how saltier water tends to be denser than fresher water. Those differences can create layers and movement, and over the globe they help power the deep circulation of the ocean. Here's the strange part, offered softly. Tiny differences in temperature and salinity, almost imperceptible on their own, can contribute to enormous patterns of movement when they repeat across huge areas for long periods of time. It's like a whisper that becomes a chorus because it happens everywhere. A small density change can make a parcel of water sink. That sinking, repeated in certain regions, helps pull water along, and because water is connected, like links in a chain, a movement in one area can influence flows elsewhere. When you look at the ocean, you might see only the surface and it might seem like a simple thing, but beneath it's layered and structured, like a quiet layered cake of temperature and salt, with invisible rivers sliding along boundaries. And again, you don't need to memorize any of this. You can let it wash over you as a feeling. The ocean is organized, not chaotic. It has rules, it has patterns, it has gentle consistency. And if your mind feels chaotic sometimes, you can borrow that consistency for a moment. The steady reassurance that patterns exist even when you can't see them. Now, let's take one of the sleepiest and most spacious steps we can take from ocean science into cosmic quiet. The ocean is a world within our world, but it also invites a bigger question. If water can make such a complex living system here on Earth, could other worlds have oceans too? Not as a thrilling mystery you have to chase, but as a soft curiosity you can hold like a warm stone in your hand. In our solar system, there are icy moons that likely hide oceans beneath their frozen shells. Europa, a moon of Jupiter, is often mentioned in this context. Enceladus, a moon of Saturn too, with hints of water beneath ice. You can picture it gently, not a scary abyss, not a dramatic sci-fi scene, but a quiet ocean under a thick roof of ice, dark and still, warmed faintly by internal heat. An ocean where waves might move without wind, where tides might be shaped by the gravity of a nearby giant planet. It's a dreamy thought. Oceans without shorelines, seas without sunsets, water moving in darkness, patient as always. And even if we never visit such oceans, even if we never confirm every detail, the thought itself can be comforting. It expands the mind without making it work too hard, because it suggests that water is a kind of universal invitation. Where you find water, you find chemistry that can become interesting. And where chemistry becomes interesting, life becomes a possibility, at least in principle. Not a promise, just a gentle possibility. Now, bring it back to yourself very softly. You're on a watery planet, even if you're in a room, even if you're far from the coast. Your body is mostly water, your blood is a moving saltwater solution, carrying oxygen like tiny tides through your tissues. Your breath is a wave of air moving in and out. Your heartbeat is a steady rhythm like a drum at a distance. Sometimes when you lie in bed at night, it can feel like you are alone with your thoughts. But in another sense, you are surrounded by systems that are steady and ancient. Gravity holding you down, air pressing gently around you, Earth turning slowly under the sky, oceans shifting in response to the moon. You don't have to do anything to be part of that. You already are, and that can be reassuring, especially if your mind is anxious. Anxiety often feels like too much future, too much urgency. The ocean offers the opposite. Slow time, wide time, rhythms that return whether you worry or not. The tide will rise, the tide will fall, waves will come and go, currents will glide. So tonight, you can release the future for a while. You can rest in the present, in the feeling of being held. Now, let's give your mind a few more gentle wow moments, small ones, like finding smooth stones along a beach. Consider this. The ocean does not have one single colour. From shore it might look blue or green or grey, but its colour is shaped by many things: the angle of sunlight, the depth of water, the particles floating in it, the plankton, the mood of the sky. In tropical shallows, water can look turquoise because light reflects off pale sand and returns upward. In deeper areas, it can look dark blue because blue light penetrates and scatters. In stormy weather, it can look slate grey, reflecting a thick sky. So the ocean is a mirror and a filter at the same time. It reflects the world and it changes the world's light. If the ocean can change colour calmly without panic like a mood that passes naturally, perhaps you can also allow your inner weather to change without fear. A thought comes, a thought goes, a feeling rises, a feeling falls. What happens if you don't fight that movement and you let it be like waves? What happens if you let your mind have tides? Now, another small wonder. The boundary between air and sea is thin, but it is one of the most active boundaries on Earth. Wind drags across it, waves wrinkle it, heat moves across it, mist forms, salt aerosols rise in tiny particles, gases dissolve and escape. It is a busy border, but it's also gentle, like two hands touching and releasing again and again. And on this border, light enters the ocean each day and darkness returns each night. Animals rise and sink, surface waters warm and cool. It's a daily cycle so reliable that countless organisms schedule their lives by it. The ocean in this way is like a clock made of sunlight and water, and you too have clocks inside you. Sleep and wake, light and dark. Sometimes the clocks get confused by stress and screens and schedules, but they are still there, still trying to keep time, so you can treat this moment as a soft reset. A gentle signal to your body that night has arrived, and it's allowed to rest. If you want, take a slow breath in now, as if you're breathing in cool sea air, and let it out, as if you're releasing the last tightness of the day. Now we can lean into the most comforting reflection of all, the one the ocean teaches without speaking. Slow time is real. Erosion happens slowly, grain by grain. Currents move slowly, inch by inch, over vast distances. Migrating animals travel steadily day by day. Coral builds patiently, polyp by polyp. Marine snow falls constantly, speck by speck. And in all that slow movement, the ocean never seems embarrassed by how long things take. It doesn't apologize for not being instant. It doesn't rush to become tomorrow. It simply moves at the pace of nature. So here's a soft question, one you don't need to answer. What would it feel like to let your night move at the pace of nature? To let sleep arrive when it arrives, to allow your thoughts to loosen the moment they're ready, not a moment before. If you notice your mind trying to evaluate, trying to measure, trying to check how well you're doing at sleeping, you can let that impulse drift away. Sleep isn't something you perform, it's something you allow, and allowing is quieter than effort. Now, as we continue toward an even dreamier part of tonight's journey, you can begin to listen for repetition in my words and let repetition become permission. You'll hear familiar images again: waves, moonlight, blue water, soft glowing life. Not because you need to remember, but because familiarity helps the brain relax. Your mind likes to know where it is, so let's return to the shoreline again, calmly, as if we're taking the same gentle path with no need for novelty. Picture the dark ocean stretching out, with the moon laying a pale stripe of light across the surface. Wave after wave moves across that stripe, breaking it into shimmering pieces, then rejoining it. Imagine the sound steady and soft. Imagine the air cool and damp. Imagine yourself safe on land, watching, not needing to enter, not needing to do anything at all. In a moment, we'll begin to let the facts become softer and more rhythmic, like pebbles dropped one by one into still water. But before we do, let yourself settle again. Release your forehead, release your jaw, release the small muscles around your eyes, let your shoulders drop, Let your hands be heavy. Let your legs loosen. You're allowed to fade in and out. You're allowed to forget what you just heard. You're allowed to fall asleep in the middle of a sentence. The ocean will continue either way, and you can drift with it, as gently as you like, and you can drift with it as gently as you like. Now we can let the facts become softer and more rhythmic, like pebbles dropped one by one into still water. Nothing here needs to be held tightly. You can let each idea arrive, rest for a moment, and then slip away. If you notice yourself trying to keep track, you can relax that effort. The ocean doesn't keep a list. The tide doesn't keep score. It simply returns. So picture the shoreline again in your mind. The water is dark and smooth further out, and closer in, it becomes textured with small waves. They come in, they spread, they disappear. The sea repeats itself without boredom because repetition is not a mistake, it's a comfort. Let your breath borrow that comfort. In and out. Here is a gentle ocean fact to begin the drift. Even when the surface seems calm, the ocean is still moving. There are always tiny currents, small shifts in temperature, subtle differences in saltiness. Movement doesn't always look like splashing. Sometimes it looks like gliding. You can let that be a reminder for yourself. Even when you're lying still, your body is still working quietly. Your heart is moving blood. Your lungs are exchanging air. Your cells are doing small tasks you never have to supervise. You can rest, and the body will continue. Another soft fact. Waves are often created by wind, but the waves that arrive at a beach can come from far away. A storm can happen beyond the horizon, and days later, gentle swells can reach a quiet coast. The energy travels, and it softens as it spreads. If you've had a hard day, you can imagine your own energy softening as it spreads across the night. It doesn't have to stay sharp. It can become rounder, smoother, quieter, like a far-off storm becoming a calm swell by the time it reaches you. Now picture the moon above the sea. Tides are shaped mostly by the moon's gravity, lifting ocean water into slow bulges that Earth turns through. So in a sense, the coastline experiences the moon, not just as light, but as motion. The sea rises and falls on a lunar rhythm. If you're awake, you might ask yourself gently, what happens if you let your attention rise and fall the same way? Not forcing it to be steady, not scolding it for drifting, just allowing it to have tides, in and out. Now, another calming fact. Seawater is salty because rivers carry dissolved minerals into the ocean slowly, continuously, like a long delivery. Rain falls on land, touches rock, gathers tiny ions, and brings them down to the sea. You can imagine each river as a thread sewn into the ocean, bringing little pieces of continents into the water. The sea is a kind of gathering place. It holds what the land releases, and you can do something similar tonight. You can let the day release from you. You can let your thoughts drain gently like streams returning to the sea. Here is another small fact, kept simple. The ocean is not equally salty everywhere. Some places are saltier because water evaporates and leaves salt behind. Some places are less salty because rain or rivers dilute the surface. So the ocean has flavors and textures, not just one uniform taste. It is varied. Even when it looks like one continuous blue. And you are varied too. Different parts of you feel different things. Perhaps one part is tired, another part is still alert. One part wants to let go, another part is still holding. That's okay, you can be like the ocean with regions and gradients, with gentle differences that can coexist. Breathe in softly, breathe out slowly. Now imagine the color of the ocean. Water absorbs red light quickly. Blue light travels deeper. This is one reason the ocean can look blue and why colors fade with depth. If you could descend into the sea, the world would slowly lose its reds, then its oranges, then its yellows, like a dimmer switch turning down. Not suddenly, gradually, quietly, and you can let your mind do something similar. Let bright thoughts fade. Let sharp edges soften. Let the inner room grow darker and calmer, not in a frightening way, but like the comforting darkness of bedtime. Another gentle fact. Sound travels well in water. Water carries vibrations far, so the ocean is full of distant messages. Some whales communicate with calls that can travel long distances through the sea. You can imagine those calls as low, steady notes, rolling through dark water like slow waves of sound. Nothing urgent, just presence, just connection. If you ever feel alone, you can take comfort in the idea that the ocean is a connected place, full of signals and responses, even when it seems empty from the surface. Now, a soft return to the image of marine snow. In the deep ocean, tiny particles drift down constantly, like a snowfall made of life's leftovers, turning into food for creatures below. Marine snow is slowy, continuous, gentle. Picture it again, a dark blue space, almost still, and countless tiny specks falling. No rush, no resistance, just the quiet pull of gravity and the patient drift of time. If you need a place to rest your mind, you can rest it there, on the falling, on the softness, on the steady downward motion that asks nothing of you. And while you rest, we can let a few more strange facts arrive, one at a time simply. Some ocean creatures glow. Bioluminescence is living light produced by chemistry. A glowing wave at night can happen when tiny plankton light up, in response to movement. A footstep in shallow water can leave a shimmering trail. A hand moving through water can spark a soft constellation. Imagine that light as gentle, not bright, like underwater starlight, like a lantern seen through fog. Some creatures are camouflaged by being darker on top and lighter underneath. This helps them blend into the sea from different angles. Some creatures are transparent, nearly invisible, because in open water there are few places to hide, so the body becomes its own hiding place by becoming almost clear. And some creatures live in communities that feel like neighborhoods. On reefs, small cleaner fish can remove parasites from larger animals, a quiet exchange of help. Now, you can let those facts blur together if you want. You don't need to separate them. You can let them become a gentle impression. The ocean is full of adaptations, full of quiet solutions, full of life-finding ways to be comfortable in its world. And perhaps that can reassure you. You too can find ways to be comfortable in your world. Tonight, comfort might look like stillness, or it might look like letting your attention drift, or it might look like simply listening until sleep arrives. In and out. Now, return with me to a soft visualization loop. You're at the shoreline at night. The air is cool, the smell is faintly salty. The sound is steady. The ocean stretches out dark and calm. You take a slow step closer. The water touches your feet. Cool, not shocking, just present. You stand there for a moment as if you are being quietly greeted. Then in your imagination you float. Not sinking, just floating in shallow water, supported. The surface above you reflects the sky. The sky reflects on the water. Everything becomes one blended, gentle scene. Your body is held, and you don't have to do anything. Then slowly you drift a little farther out where the water is deeper, but still safe in your imagination, as if you're being carried on a calm current that knows where it's going. As you drift, the world becomes bluer, the light becomes softer, the sounds become muffled, not silent but dimmer, like someone turning down a volume knob, and then you drift back again slowly to the shoreline, to the feeling of air and sand and steadiness. You can loop that journey as many times as you like. Shoreline, shallow water, gentle blue, and back again. If your mind wanders, it can wander in that loop. It doesn't need new destinations. It can visit the same calm places again and again, like returning to a familiar room. Now, more gentle fact pebbles dropped slowly into the stillness. The ocean stores heat and releases it slowly. That is why coastal climates can feel mild. The sea smooths extremes. Currents move heat around the planet, like slow rivers of warmth. The seafloor has mountains and canyons, ridges and trenches. Much of Earth's longest mountain range is underwater. New seafloor is formed at mid-ocean ridges, where plates drift apart slowly, quietly, steadily. In some places, very salty, dense water can flow along the bottom like a heavy stream. There are waves beneath the visible waves, internal waves, rolling along boundaries between layers of water. The ocean is layered, warm above, cold below, fresh above in some places, salty below in others, layers sliding gently past each other. Now let these facts become more like music than information. You can hear them without needing to interpret them. You can let the words be like the sound of surf, meaningful but not demanding. If you're still awake, you might notice a thought that says, "Am I learning enough? Am I relaxing enough? Am I doing sleep correctly?" You can let that thought go. Sleep isn't a performance, it's a drifting, and drifting is allowed. Now in this drift phase, we can make things simpler and more repetitive by returning to a few core ideas again and again, like waves returning. The ocean moves, the ocean breathes, the ocean holds. Waves are energy moving through water. Tides are the moon's gentle tug. Salt comes from rivers and time. Light fades to blue as you go deeper. Sound travels far in water. Marine snow falls like quiet nourishment. Life glows sometimes like underwater stars. You can let those lines repeat in your mind softly without pressure. The ocean moves, the ocean breathes, the ocean holds, and you can rest. Now, take a moment to notice your pillow again. Notice the weight of your head. Notice the way your neck is supported. If you find a small tension, you don't have to fight it. You can just breathe near it, as if your breath is warm light moving slowly through your body. Warm light in the forehead, warm light behind the eyes, warm light in the jaw, warm light in the shoulders, warm light in the chest, and with each exhale you can imagine a tiny release, like a wave pulling back from the sand, taking a little bit of tension with it. In and out. Now, another visualization, a little different, still gentle. Imagine you are in a quiet underwater library, not a literal building, just the feeling of it. The shelves are made of kelp and coral-shaped shadows. The books are not paper, but layers of water. Warm layers, cool layers, salty layers, fresh layers. Each layer is of a page, and the pages turn silently as currents move. In this library nothing is due. Nothing must be returned on time. There are no deadlines. There is only the gentle turning of water, the quiet writing of chemistry, the soft illumination of bioluminescent points, like reading lamps far apart. You drift through the aisles slowly, and every so often you stop, and a single fact rests in your mind like a sentence. Waves carry energy. tides follow the moon. Salt dissolves and moves. Light fades to blue. Sound travels far. Marine snow falls. And then the sentence dissolves, and you drift on. If you like, you can let that library scene fade back into the shoreline. Nothing has to stay. Everything can come and go. Now let's slow the facts even more. A softer cadence, a simpler rhythm. The ocean covers most of Earth. The ocean is deep, but it does not need to feel dramatic. The ocean is moving even when it looks still. The ocean is salty, but not equally everywhere. The ocean is layered, like a quiet stack of blankets. The ocean absorbs red light sooner than blue, so depth becomes bluer. The ocean carries sound well, so distant voices can travel. The ocean has places of warmth on the seafloor, hydrothermal vents, like gentle hearths. The ocean has hidden geography, mountains that never see sunlight. The ocean has falling food, marine snow, drifting down like nighttime flakes. The ocean has living lights, bioluminescent glows like slow stars. Now, pause. Let that list melt. Let it become a single feeling. Wide water, slow time, calm repetition. Now, breathe. In and out. Another gentle question. What happens if you stop trying to reach sleep, and instead you let sleep reach you? What happens if you allow yourself to be like the ocean floor, not rushing upward, just resting where you are, while the surface moves above? Your bed can be the ocean floor tonight, a steady base, and above, your thoughts can be like surface waves, moving, shifting, repeating, but never needing to change the steadiness below. Now we'll loop again, but even more slowly. Shoreline. You hear the surf, you smell the salt, you feel cool air on your skin, shallow water, you feel buoyancy, you float without effort. Gentle blue, colours fade, sounds soften, tiny lights appear like distant stars. And back again, shoreline, surf, salt, breath. And if you drift away in the middle of this loop, that is perfect. That means it is working. Now, another soothing connection back to everyday life. When you breathe out, moisture leaves your body. Warm air carries water vapour. That vapour becomes part of the atmosphere, and the atmosphere is a moving ocean of its own with currents and layers, with humidity and temperature gradients. The sky is like an ocean you live at the bottom of, and the ocean is like a sky you can't breathe, but that life has learned to inhabit. Two worlds stacked, exchanging heat and gases and movement. You can let that thought expand gently, like a slow zoom outward. A room, a bed, a sleeping person, breathing, a city, quieting, a region under a night sky, a planet turning, oceans shifting under moonlight, air moving above them, clouds forming and dissolving, and beyond, space, dark and calm, holding all of it without effort. And then you zoom back in, just as gently, back to your breath, back to your pillow, back to the warmth of your blanket, back to the calm of being here. Now, we'll let the words become even more repetitive, even more like waves. The ocean is patient, the ocean is steady, the ocean moves slowly. Waves rise and fall, tides rise and fall, breath rises and falls, you rise and fall between wake and sleep. It's okay, it's normal, you're safe. Now if you want, imagine a small lantern drifting on calm water. It is not bright, it is soft. The lantern rises on a wave and dips behind it. It comes closer, then farther. Sometimes it's visible, Sometimes it hides for a moment, then returns. You don't chase it, you just watch it. Your thoughts can be like that lantern. They can appear, glow softly, and then dip away. You don't have to chase them. You don't have to interpret them. You can watch them and let them pass, in and out. Now, a few more quiet ocean facts, chosen for their softness rather than their complexity. Seawater can feel different from fresh water because of density. Salt makes water denser, which can make floating slightly easier in the sea. Some seas are unusually salty, like the Red Sea, because evaporation is strong and freshwater input is limited. In colder regions, when sea ice forms, salt is mostly pushed out, making nearby water denser, helping it sink and feed deeper circulation. The deep ocean can be very cold, near freezing, yet life can persist there, slow and efficient. The ocean has deserts and gardens too. Some areas are nutrient poor and clear. Others are rich with plankton blooms. Plankton blooms can sometimes be seen from above, swirling patterns on the surface like brush strokes of life in water. Coral reefs are built by tiny animals over long time, creating structures that shelter many species. Kelp forests sway with currents, underwater trees of algae, moving in slow motion. Some animals navigate by Earth's magnetic field, sensing a map you cannot feel. Now let those facts become distant, as if you're hearing them through a wall, like a dream. You don't need to pull them closer, you can let them fade. Now, return to the sound of surf again, imagined or remembered. The steady hush, the repeating rise, the gentle collapse into foam, the fizz of bubbles, the pull back into the sea, over and over. It's like the ocean is practicing letting go again and again, and you can practice it too with your muscles. Let your toes loosen, let your ankles soften. Let your calves release, let your knees rest, let your thighs be heavy, let your hips sink, let your belly rise and fall with a breath without you doing anything. Let your chest be gentle, let your hands be warm and still, let your shoulders be wide and loose, let your face be smooth. If you notice a place that doesn't want to relax, you don't have to force it. You can simply allow it to exist. And imagine that warm seawater is passing over it slowly, patiently until it softens on its own, in and out. Now, a final drift into the simplest rhythm of all. Waves come, waves go, breath comes, breath goes, thoughts come, thoughts go, the moon pulls, the tide answers, the tide retreats. The ocean continues. You continue, quietly, safely, and if sleep is near, you can let it arrive like a gentle swell rolling in without effort, lifting you slightly and then setting you down into deeper rest. There is nothing you need to do for that to happen. You can simply float. You can simply listen. You can simply fade. And the ocean somewhere out there under the same sky will keep moving in its calm way, repeating its soft patterns while you drift further and further into quiet. And the ocean, somewhere out there under the same sky, will keep moving in its calm way, repeating its soft patterns while you drift further and further into quiet. If you're still awake, you can simply be awake. You don't need to take that as a sign that anything is wrong. Sometimes the mind lingers at the shoreline a little longer before it steps into sleep. Sometimes it circles the same calm bay, making small loops until it finally tires of swimming and floats. So let your body stay heavy and supported, let your breathing be ordinary, and let my words be like the surf in the distance, present, steady and never demanding, in and out. Now, We'll begin to gather the night gently, like collecting a few smooth shells and placing them in your pocket, not to keep forever, but to feel the quiet texture for a moment. Think back to the simplest ocean truth we started with. Waves are energy moving through water. The water rises and falls, and the shape travels. A little like the stadium wave where the motion passes through a crowd while people remain in place. A little like a bedsheet rippling when you flick the edge. You can let that be a small comfort. Movement can happen without you going anywhere. Thoughts can move without you chasing them. Sensations can shift without you needing to intervene. Another simple truth. Tides are the planet's slow response to gravity, mostly from the moon. The ocean rises and falls on a rhythm shaped by something far away and steady. The coastline experiences the moon, not only as light, but as motion. And that motion repeats, patient and reliable. If you ever feel like your inner world is unsteady, you can remember that the outer world has rhythms that have been repeating for a very long time. You do not have to hold yourself up alone. You are within a system that holds you, in and out. Another shell for your pocket. Salt. Seawater is salty because rivers carry dissolved minerals into it slowly, over long time. Rain touches rock. Water runs downhill. It gathers tiny ions, grain by grain, and delivers them to the sea, and the ocean's salt is not even everywhere. It changes with evaporation, with rainfall, with river mouths, with sea ice. Even the ocean has gradients. Even the ocean has regions that feel different. So if your mind feels inconsistent, if your body has mixed feelings, if one part of you is calm and another part is restless, you don't have to fix it. You can let it be like the sea, varied and still whole, now return to light. Water absorbs red light sooner than blue, so the deeper you go, the bluer it becomes, the dimmer it becomes, like a slow fade of colour. You can let your mind fade that way tonight, not by force, simply by permission. Let the bright thoughts lose their sharpness. Let the urgent thoughts become quiet. Let the day's colours soften into the gentle blue of rest, in and out. Another quiet truth. Sound travels well in water. The ocean carries vibrations far. Distant calls and echoes move through the sea like low, steady messages. Even when the surface seems quiet, there is a kind of listening happening beneath. And you can listen loosely too, not straining, not focusing, just letting sound be sound, letting words be words, letting your awareness float. Now, one more shell. Marine snow. Tiny particles drifting down through the deep like constant snowfall, soft nourishment falling from the brighter surface into darker water. You can picture that again, because it is one of the gentlest images the ocean offers. Deep blue space, stillness, and slow, patient falling speck by speck. If you need a place for your mind to land, it can land there. Now we'll move into the last, softest part of tonight, where everything becomes simpler, more repetitive, and more dreamlike. You do not need to remember. You do not need to try. You are safe. It is okay to fall asleep, in and out. Let's return to the shoreline once more in your imagination, as if you are walking the same easy path in the dark, guided by nothing but familiarity. The air is cool and slightly damp. There is the faint taste of salt. The waves make a steady hush as they arrive and retreat. The sky is wide and the night is calm. Now imagine a gentle light, maybe from a distant lighthouse, sweeping slowly over the sea, not calling you to do anything, not warning, just turning steady, patient, making the world feel watched over. and while that beam turns, the ocean moves the way it always does. Waves come, waves go, the tide shifts, the tide returns. Now let's make the words themselves behave like waves. A simple fact arrives, then it leaves. Another arrives, then it leaves. You don't have to hold any of them. Here's a simple one. The ocean covers most of Earth's surface. Now it can drift away. Here's another. Even when the sea looks still, it is always moving in small currents and layers. Now it can drift away. Another. Warm water is usually less dense than cold water, so it tends to sit above colder one. Now it can drift away. Another. Saltier water is denser than fresher water, so it can sink, forming layers that slide like silk. Now it can drift away. Another. The seafloor has mountains, ridges, canyons and trenches, hidden landscapes under a blanket of water. Now it can drift away. Another. Some life in the deep ocean does not rely on sunlight, but on chemical energy around gentle hydrothermal vents like underwater hearths. Now it can drift away. Another. Some ocean organisms glow, producing light through chemistry like underwater stars. Now it can drift away. Now take a slow breath, in and out. If you're awake, you might notice that your awareness is changing shape. Maybe it's softer around the edges, maybe it's not gripping as tightly, maybe it is already half dreaming. That's perfect. Now we'll repeat a few core images, the way the ocean repeats, not for you to memorize but to soothe. The shoreline, the moon, the tide, the blue fading light, the falling marine snow, the tiny glimmers of bioluminescence though, the slow circulation of currents, the steady hush of surf, and you, resting, in and out. Imagine now very gently that you are floating on your back in calm water, but still same, still comfortable, as if the ocean is only in your imagination and your bed is the real support beneath you. Above you is a night sky, below you is dark water, and between you are held. Buoyancy is one of the ocean's quiet miracles. Water supports. It holds you up when you stop fighting. It lifts you when you let it. So allow your bed to be buoyancy tonight. Allow the mattress to hold you. Allow the blanket to press gently, like the comforting weight of water around a floating body. Allow yourself to be supported. Nothing else is needed. Now, another quiet loop. Shoreline, shallow water, gentle blue. Tiny lights, back to shoreline, shoreline, shallow water, gentle blue, tiny lights, back to shoreline. If you drift and lose track, that is exactly what we want. Now we can add a soft metaphor that returns again and again. A lantern on calm water, just a small warm glow. It rises on waves and dips behind them. Sometimes you see it clearly. Sometimes it disappears for a moment, then it returns, and you don't chase it. You don't worry about where it went. You trust that it comes and goes. Thoughts can be like that. A thought appears, it glows softly, then it dips away. That's okay, in and out. Now we'll let the imagery become even more meditative. Picture the ocean as a long, slow breath. The wave line creeps up the sand. Pause, then it recedes. Pause, in, out, in, out. The ocean doesn't mind repeating itself. It doesn't mind being simple. It doesn't mind being slow. So you can be simple tonight. You can be slow. You can repeat the same comfort again and again, and that repetition can be enough. Now let's revisit gently the idea that the ocean is connected to your everyday life. You do not need to be near the sea to be influenced by it. The ocean stores heat and releases it slowly, shaping winds and temperatures, making weather less extreme near coasts. The ocean exchanges gases with the atmosphere, a quiet breathing at the surface where air and water touch. Water evaporates and returns as rain, feeding rivers that return to the sea. The planet is stitched together by cycles. You are stitched into those cycles. This can be comforting when the mind feels alone, because it means you're part of a larger pattern, and that pattern continues steady and calm whether you think about it or not. In and out. Now we'll soften the language further, as if your mind is already drifting into dream. Ocean, moon, tide, wave, salt blue, deep calm glow, snowfall, breath, rest, ocean, moon, tide, wave, salt, blue, deep calm glow, snowfall, breath, rest. You can let these words become like the sound of surf, not something to interpret, just something to float with. Now, bring your attention back to your body for a moment, the way you might briefly touch the ground to remind yourself you're safe. Feel your head resting. Feel your cheeks relaxed. Feel your shoulders heavy. Feel your hands still. Feel your legs supported. If there is any small tension anywhere, you don't need to push it away. You can simply notice it with kindness and imagine warm seawater passing over it slowly as many times as it needs. Warm water does not argue with tension. It simply surrounds it. It gently encourages it to soften, in and out. Now, one last gentle zoom outward, and then back in, like a lullaby that briefly opens into the night sky and then returns to the room. A bed, a room, a building. A street growing quiet, a city under night, a continent under stars, a planet turning slowly, oceans shifting under moonlight, and beyond, the calm dark of space. Not empty, just quiet. Not frightening, just wide. And now back in, back to your breath, back to your pillow, back to the small safe world of sleep. Now we'll let the ending be open, like the ocean horizon, where you can't see the edge and you don't need to. I'll offer a calm summary, like placing a few last shells in your hand and then letting them fall back into the sand. We wandered through waves and how they carry energy. We touched tides and the moon's gentle pull. We tasted salt carried by rivers and time. We watched light fade into blue with a depth. We listened to sound travelling far through water. We pictured hidden landscapes under the sea. We imagined marine snow falling softly. We remembered life that glows like underwater stars. And through it all, the ocean stayed patient, steady, slow, like a kind teacher who never rushes you, never asks you to prove anything, never demands that you remember. That is how you can treat yourself tonight. No proving, no pressure, no requirement. You did enough simply by arriving here and letting your body rest. If you learned something, that's a gentle bonus. If you forgot everything, that's also perfect. Because sleep is the real destination. Now, take one more comfortable breath in, as if you are breathing in cool sea air, and let it out slowly like a wave pulling back from the sand. In and out. If sleep is already close, you can let it take you. If sleep is not yet close, you can continue to float here, safe with nothing to do. The ocean does not rush toward morning, it simply moves through night, and you can do the same. Good night. Not a sharp good night, not a final door closing, just a soft dimming, like the last thin line of foam dissolving into the dark water, like a lantern dipping behind a wave, like the tide turning quietly, without anyone needing to watch it. And as the sea continues its slow work somewhere under the same sky, you can drift and drift and drift until even the words become part of the ocean's hush and then fade into silence.